This is Matt Coyne, host of The Cheap Seats. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes up every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Why jazzercise when you can fantasize? Welcome to Completely Serious. That catchphrase was sent to us by listener Bubba Farts. And that's farts with a PH. Bubba, thanks for listening. Not sure if your catchphrase makes any sense, but it is appropriate because today on Completely Serious, the show where we have fun and talk sports, we are talking fantasy football. Yes, football has no off season, and neither does fantasy football. And a very special episode today of Completely Serious because we have leveled up our studio. For this week, I'm not recording in my living room / computer room / bedroom. I'm recording in a hotel room on my way down to New Orleans. Nolans, as they say, with two fantasy football experts. I called them up the other day and I was like, hey, do you guys want to be on Completely Serious, the show where we have fun and talk sports? And they were like, well, we're driving down to New Orleans, a.k.a. Nolans, but we have some time to talk in the hotel. And instead of calling ahead, I said, why don't I just join? And they said, no way. But then I hid in the trunk of their van and just jumped out when they got into the parking lot and surprised them like 5 minutes ago. They call themselves Two Guys in a Cup full of fantasy thoughts. Here they are, Jackson and Tyler. When I asked you guys, hey, can I invade your trip to the Big Easy and do a podcast? Why did you say no? Like, I'm a friendly guy. Why did you say no?
Fantasy football, I feel like the biggest change in last year to this year, the power rankings of running backs between, let's say, 2016-17, I feel like now a rookie running back can come in to be really good. The Fournettes, the Kamaras, the Kareem Hunts. Is that the big difference after last year's success of rookie running backs?
I'd say so. I think that teams are starting to really go with the run games. These running backs are just becoming more and more just physical specimens. You know, for a long stretch of time, we didn't really have any of these really solid running backs, and now they just seem to be popping up all over the place. I mean, shit, we've had like 3-4 generational quote-unquote running backs, you know, right, Tyler? Like,
last 4 years, what do you got? You got Fournette possibly, Zeke for sure.
Yeah, Gurley, you got Saquon Barkley, that's, you know, the greatest running back since, you know, last year. And
6 years ago, Trent Richardson, he's still in the league, right? He's having a good career.
Yeah.
Is he the one exception? I feel like over the past, 7 or 8 years, running backs that have gone, say, top 15. It's almost a bona fide they're going to be good.
Well, part of it has to do with, you know, in the NFL draft, you see, I feel like you have these sprees of, you know, running backs have to be a top pick because, you know, you have these players like your Todd Gurley's that are killing it right now, your Le'Veon Bells that are just out of this world, and Ezekiel Elliott is doing great. All these teams think that they now need a running back, so you're seeing these running backs going earlier and earlier, and that's fine when the talent's there, but once you get to a Trent Richardson type player who, even though he had all the signs of being great in college, teams think, I got to have him. And then you're just going to start seeing busts because, you know, you got to have a running back in the top 5 picks, which tends to not necessarily pan out for NFL teams.
And I think also the league's evolving. You know, Richardson was a typical workhorse back. Didn't catch a whole lot of passes coming out of college. And now it's obviously evolved. We're looking at guys that are on the field for all 3 downs because they can run, they can catch, you know, they can do all they check all the boxes, you know. And that's why Barkley is such a hot commodity. That's why Geis might be a little bit less of a commodity, you know.
I think it was Geese.
Geese or Geis? There's some confusion about the name. We're going to clarify it for anybody listening. Geese or Geis? Two guys and a couple of fantasy football thoughts.
Geis.
Geis. Okay, there we go. We're good.
You might see Geis fall to maybe the late first, early second, and whereas a guy like Christian McCaffrey went early to mid, early first. So and a lot of that has to do with the pass catching ability. Again, the league's evolving every year. We're going to see guys coming out that have to do both if they're going to go in that top 15. And if they do go in that top 15, they got to produce.
As fantasy guys, how much do you get up for the actual NFL draft? I mean, I know you're dynasty experts. How excited do you get for the draft, even though we're still half a year away from opening season kickoff?
Oh, very excited. This is the time of year that you're starting to watch film, you're reading up on these players, you're checking all the boxes, seeing what their measurables are on pro days and the combines, and you get yourself, a chunk of players that you really like. And then coming into the draft, you think, where do I want to see these players go? Do I really want to see guys going to New York, or do I want to see him going to a Baltimore? Where are these situations that I think they can succeed the most at, and where do I not want to see, somebody going to the Cleveland Browns, where it's just gonna, be a funeral for them, for their values, because nothing ever good comes from Cleveland.
Always a sad career.
Except for LeBron James.
That's it. He's half of their economy.
To piggyback on that, when it comes to me, I'm not a film expert by any means, but I know what I see, and I do a lot of YouTube, highlight compilation videos. Again, I don't have the VHS tapes, or I'm not John Gruden, but I do have access to the internet.
It's actually a requirement for any guest that comes on this show. They have to have access to the internet at least for 2 days out of the week.
And I have that, so that's why I'm here.
That's why I go to Starbucks.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But like I said, for me, the film comes first. If I like a player, I like him. If he lands in a spot that I think is positive, then I'm doubling up. I'm doing what I can to get that guy. I think, for example, Jordan Howard, when he came out in Indiana, there were a few games that I watched. The tape was explosive at the time. John Fox was the coach. He's kind of a run-heavy guy. And he was just bruising people. And, I liked him. First of all, I'm a Bear fan, so I'm kind of a homer there. It's a homer pick, but coming out, kind of a late-round guy. I took a flyer on him, I think, in the second round. And obviously he's panned out since then, a little bit on the fritz now with Matt Nagy coming in. So if he doesn't work on his pass catching skills, he could be out. But, from where I got him, from a talent standpoint, he's always going to have a place in the league. But for me, it's talent first and landing spot second, even though I think they're almost equal when it comes to a lot of the opinions.
Right to my next question, how much does team matter? Tyler, you just said talent over landing spot. To me, it's almost like a 50-50 thing. Of course, you have the talent, but then maybe the landing spot depicts whether you're going to take a guy at 1.9 or 1.4. That would probably be how I measure out the two.
Well, when it comes to offensive players, I would definitely put talent trumping situation, because you're going to have your guys that offensively they're going to be able to produce. Now, if you ever get into the world of IDPs, your individual defensive players, that's when you really start running into situations where situation may trump talent, because for your defensive players, they have to be able to be on the field to produce. And then on top of that, your defensive ends, depending on whether in the 4-3 scheme or 3-4, if they're, classified as defensive end to a linebacker. Offensively, for majority of leagues, I think talent is going to be the deciding factor for me, because if they're good enough, they're not going to be stopped.
That's kind of how I feel. Not to go back to Jordan Howard again, but this is the best reference that I got. Jeremy Langford had that kind of breakout season, some would call it that. I didn't really... He flashed, but I didn't think he was that good of a player. That also led to a big reason why I took Howard, because the Bears took him, and in the back of my mind, or actually in the front, Jordan Howard is better than this guy. I have no doubt he will take that starting position and run with it. So maybe a situation where a guy might get drafted to a team and you think, all right, they have a starter. They took him. I'm not sure why they took him there. because they have a guy. If you think that guy's better than the starter, chances are he's going to take that guy's job. And if you think he has the talent to keep it, then why not go ahead and maybe not reach on him, but if you feel like it's a guy that checks the boxes for you and is a solid performer and has longevity, why not take him there? And that's why team is important. Obviously, if a team needs a guy at a position and they take a guy at a position, then that starts to kind of put the whole talent and situation team into a little bit of a jumble, but not enough to where it would make it the deciding factor for me.
That was Tyler. We also got Jackson from Two Guys and a couple of fantasy football thoughts. I'm going to run some players by both of you. Rapid fire. Different guys who are kind of borderline one level or the next. I want you to tell me how you value them. I'll start with Jackson. The first guy is Willie Snead. Here's a guy who's got a lot of talent, playing in New Orleans with Drew Brees, but he hasn't quite filled it out. Where do you value this guy in terms of in that ranking of wide receivers? Is he a guy you start? Is he a flex? Where's he at, you think?
I would put him as a flex at best. He certainly hasn't panned out to any expectations that some Snead fans might have had, and it certainly doesn't look like they're committed to him long term necessarily.
Same question?
Same question.
All right, Willie Snead. I've really mixed no words with this guy in the past. I do think he's overrated. I do think he's very volume dependent, as a lot of receivers are. When year two, was it? The year before this last season, he kind of showed some potential. This last season, a huge disappointment, I feel like. And I think the Saints kind of feel that way too, because why would they sign Cam Meredith through an offer sheet? Maybe a pick and pop spot for a bye week as a flex. I would never hold him in any higher regard than that.
How about this guy? He switched teams from the New England Patriots to the Tennessee Titans. Deion Lewis.
I don't have any shares of him currently, but I believe you do, Tyler. So why don't you
Tyler, go for it.
I do. Yeah, I've kind of had Deion Lewis for a couple of years now. But as a Deion Lewis owner, obviously, I think he's showed a lot of potential in New England. I was glad that he got out, but didn't like to see his landing spot necessarily. Obviously, he'll share touches with King Derrick Henry over there. But they complement each other nicely is the thing.
Jackson, here's one for you. I know you like this guy a lot. Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones Jr., I believe. The receiver for the Detroit Lions. He's overperformed with a great offense, but he's been good every year. What do you think?
Well, I think overperformed is saying a little harshly to the guy's talent. I think he's also been a little underrated here.
As we crack open more beers. There's a big thing on this podcast. We like to sometimes drink a nice beverage while we do it.
This is actually a strawberry Faygo.
This is not alcoholic.
Then you want a brewski? Then you want a brewski? 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 Then you want a brewski? 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 You want a brewski? 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 Then you want a brewski? 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 Brewski?
Marvin Jones Jr., I call him as a player who's overperformed. You don't think so, though? You think he's actually...
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is that because of the front flip from a few years ago? Is it because of the flip? Was that him?
That wasn't him.
He's athletic, though. Yeah, he's
very
athletic.
He's he's got that prototypical size that you're looking for in a top wide receiver, and I feel as if the talent has been there from his time in Cincinnati and to where he's at now in a very pass-heavy offense. And Golden Tate's not getting any younger. He's starting to show a little age. And as far as your touchdowns that you want from your wide receiver, Marvin Jones has the ability to produce those on, I feel, a regular basis that you can trust. And truth be told, not this last year, he did very well in the year before that. Had it not been for, I believe, a consistent hamstring injury that he dealt with for the second half of the season, he was doing well there too. So
here's a question, though. Mouth defeat in Detroit. The possible emergence of Kenny Galladay.
Not worried.
Is that value? Is that something you keep in mind? How much talent is on an offense when you look at the value of a particular player? Like Marvin Jones, maybe another offense, when he's the one guy, the one mouth to feed, he gets more points, but on Detroit, maybe not. Do you think about that, or you just go off pure talent? It kind of goes back to the earlier question about landing spot, but this is a little bit different in the sense that this player's already on the team. Do you keep it invested in him when there's already a lot of talent?
Oh, I certainly would. And something to keep in mind when you look at some of these guys, if you're not in a dynasty league and you're doing a typical redraft, is when you look at value in your draft, Marvin Jones is probably towards the tail end of where your draft is going to be, but he's shown signs that he can produce at that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 level, and so it allows you to adjust your draft accordingly to maybe take a few more running backs just to be safe from injuries, and maybe try and get a wide receiver at a lower value that can outproduce his draft capital.
I asked this question to a few friends earlier today. It's funny you bring up Marvin Jones. Who do you think is probably being drafted higher in ADP for dynasty leagues, Marvin Jones or Stephon Diggs? It is actually, of course, Stephon Diggs,
Sure.
but the numbers don't really dictate that. The age is a little difference, but when it comes to the numbers, I don't recall exactly the difference in the draft, but I know that Diggs is being taken over a guy who's outproducing the last 2 seasons.
Is there any other players, maybe running back, quarterbacks, receivers, possibly tight ends, that are outproducing guys in their same position, but you expect them when people start drafting for their single seasons or their dynasties in the next couple months to be picked later on than guys they're actually better than? Marvin Jones was a good example, I think. A handful of running backs, too, that are going to be in that same conversation. Maybe Mark Ingram usually gets picked late and always performs well.
Yeah, Mark Ingram, I think, is actually probably going to be one of my guys I'm looking at drafting the most, because I feel with the emergence of Alvin Kamara, people are going to think that he's going to continue to get better, whereas I think where he was so touchdown dependent, he may actually surprise a lot of people and have quite a bit of regression. And Mark Ingram still quietly had a very, very productive year, I feel, that nobody's really talking about because Kamara was so impressive in his rookie performances. So I think he's going to be a guy that might actually be drafted behind Kamara, but very easily could produce more fantasy points for you. Trying to think if there's any other guys, Tyler, that...
Running backs, I'm not sure. I got a wide receiver for you, though. It's a popular name, one that's been traded recently. Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
He's going through an offense that now all of a sudden appears to be loaded. If they walk away with this draft with Saquon Barkley that's projected, then they're hitting you from all sides. You got Josh Gordon, David Njoku. They could get their dynasty or their franchise quarterback in this draft as well. And I think people are thinking that offense is going to be spread out wide receiver wise, like stats. I think Landry will flourish, though. I think he's going to have his best season to date. Book it. Maybe not reception. Maybe not reception wise. But I think he's going to lead the team in touchdowns, lead the team in receiving yards, and I think he has a newfound confidence. He knows this team wants him. He's already been posting pictures of himself with other players, social media. He's all in on this Browns team, and I think a motivated player that's take him to a next level. So Jarvis Landry, I think, will have a huge season. He's a very good player to begin with. I think he'll probably go maybe third, maybe fourth at best in a lot of these drafts. But I think when it's all said and done, he'll be a top 10 PPR wide receiver.
I want to ask you guys how to handle certain players in a league. We all have our leagues, and everybody has like an identity. You have the guy who wins all the time, the guy who never checks his team. I want to run by some typical guys you'll find in a fantasy league, and tell me how you would handle them. One I want to bring up that everybody loves sometimes, depending on if the trade favors you, is that guy who proposes all the bad trades. Yeah, you hate him, but then he'll propose that one that is completely favoring your team and he doesn't get it. But how do you handle the guy that proposes 20 bad trades a month and you feel like it's a waste of time? Do you just push him aside? Do you wait for that good one? What do you do with them?
Thing you could ever really do when it comes to any of your football leagues is communication is key, because
it's like a relationship.
It is.
You got to communicate.
And the only way that you may never break them. They may send you all the bad trades in the world, hoping that maybe you're a little tipsy, a little drunk, and you just hit that accept button. You know, the best thing you could ever do is when they send you a bad trade, say, you know, text them, message them back, and say, reason why you're saying no. And maybe, hopefully, probably not, but they'll start to understand where you think, because...
This is like a relationship. It's like a breakup.
It is. You know, somebody that says, hey, you need to, you know, take the dog out more. And you're just like, well, the reason I'm not doing that is because I'm doing all the laundry and dishes. You know, you just got to work with them. You got to try and, you know, get them on the same page. You know, I'd much rather deal with somebody that sends a bunch of awful trades but will talk to you than somebody that doesn't even participate in the league, to where they may have a player you want, but you might as well not even try and get them because they're not even going to talk to you.
Tyler, how do you deal with a guy who never checks his team? Everybody's got that.
You don't.
Player. You don't.
You can't.
You can't.
It's impossible.
What you can really do, if you have their number, if you have their phone number, maybe shoot them a message, but that might get you through a little bit. But really, when it comes down to it, your best bet is to hopefully strike a deal at the draft, the rookie draft. Because if someone doesn't check their team, then what are you going to do? They're not, if they don't have notifications on their emails, they're not getting these emails saying, "Hey, I'm interested in this player," or your trade offers, you know, your private messages. If they're not seeing it, that's really all you can do. Some of the people in our league are not. We have groups of friends, and then we have people that we don't talk to quite as much as other people in the league. Maybe get a hold of your commissioner to let them know, hey, this person is interested in this guy. If you have any interest in moving him, maybe get a hold of him, and this is his number if you don't already have it. Yeah, but when it comes down to it, I've sent offers, and I know Jackson, other players in our league have sent the guy that has the 1-1. And we've been told that
the top trade.
The top
pick.
I mean, it's obviously Saquon Barkley. The offers coming in, maybe he's seen them all. If he has seen them all, he doesn't take the time to decline them or respond to them, which is frustrating. Maybe in his head, he will not trade it no matter what the cost. If that's the case, then tell us. I'm
going to let you get to WrestleMania. I've snuck in the car, and I'm hanging out in your hotel. I know the police are coming, so I'm gonna get out. But thank you for jumping on the podcast.
Oh, I'm glad that you broke into my trunk.
Yeah.
Anytime. Like I called the cops. I don't regret it. I hope they do soon. But maybe we'll do this again. Maybe you won't break into my friend's vehicle, and it'll be legal next time.
We'll try to make it legal next time. This has been Completely Serious on Public House Media. We'll talk with you next week.